He smiled when I took the first sip too eagerly, like he'd been waiting for it all night. We messaged for about a week before he asked me out for wine at his apartment. He claimed he was a sommelier in training, obsessed with flavors, wine pairings, all of that. He said it was imported, expensive, and the kind of thing you only share with someone you're trying to impress. That line should have made me laugh, but it made my stomach twist instead. I took a very small sip, just enough to wet my lips. I don't usually go to someone's apartment for a first date, but he was polite and persistent without being pushy. It was a Tuesday night. I didn't have work early the next day, and I guess I ignored the hesitation in my gut. I met him on Tinder. His profile was charming, photos clean and casual, a little witty, maybe too polished in hindsight. Then I hid my phone behind the trash bin. I didn't want to be found with it in hand. His place was surprisingly clean. "Everything okay?" he asked, too softly. He said, "Take your time," and walked away, but I didn't hear footsteps. Not really. Just silence. One of those mid-rise downtown complexes with granite countertops and LED mood lighting. He had soft music playing, Nina Simone, I think, and a charcuterie board already made. The wine glasses were chilled. My vision fuzzed at the edges. I wanted to scream, but couldn't trust my voice to come out. Then, a whisper. Classy, I thought. Too classy for a psycho. Stupid logic, I know. He seemed satisfied. We talked about movies for a bit. He poured a deep red from a bottle I didn't recognize. The light above the mirror flickered, but not all the way off. I stayed seated, barely blinking. I tried to convince myself it was the pipes. I didn't swallow. But then I saw my reflection in the mirror and noticed how glassy my eyes already were. I grabbed a metal toothbrush holder to use as a weapon, ridiculous, but it was all I had. I stared at the door. Then I looked back at the cabinet under the sink, and I knew. I've been roofied once before, in college. The banging at the door got more frantic, then just stopped. I remembered the floaty sensation, the delayed fear, the way it hits in layers. If I'd finished even half that glass, I probably wouldn't have made it. They never found him. Not a real name. Not a real job. The apartment had been rented short-term through a sublease scam. The only reason I'm alive is because I knew the taste. And I lied with a smile. There's a sick familiarity to it. Like a body memory. That same buzzing had started again and had barely taken one sip. I smiled and complimented the flavor while watching his eyes. He watched me like a hawk. I faked another sip and complimented the finish. 5 minutes later, I excused myself to the bathroom glass, still mostly full. That's when I started feeling it. A buzzing in my spine. My lips felt heavy. Not numb, just wrong. Like they weren't mine anymore. I didn't panic right away. I've had anxiety attacks before, and wine can sneak up on you. I locked the door. I tried to steady my hands, pulled out my phone and called 911. Whispered what was happening. Told them my location. Told them I might pass out soon. He knocked gently on the door after a minute. I said I was fine, just fixing my makeup. That's when I got scared. I sat on the toilet, heart racing, trying to buy myself time. My thoughts started slowing down. Not through the door. Inside the bathroom, from under the sink. It was almost comical. I thought I was hallucinating until the whisper turned into a low, slow breathing sound, wet and deliberate. I stared at the cabinet doors. Then the doorknob turned. Locked, thankfully. But he tried again, this time jiggling harder. "You okay in there?" His voice was louder now. He tried the handle again. "You okay, Claire?" I never told him my name. My profile didn't use it. I used a nickname my friends call me C. "Claire, come on," he said again, like we were in the middle of some argument. I stood up, swaying. My legs felt full of jelly. The breathing had stopped. Sirens, faint but getting closer. I slumped against the wall, toothbrush holder still in my hand, eyes barely open. 10 minutes later, paramedics found me. He was gone. So was the bottle. So were all the wine glasses, except mine, which had been rinsed, turned upside down, and placed on the drying rack. The toxicology report said the drug dose in my bloodstream was low but climbing. The first time I met him, I thought it was fate, until I learned he had been watching me long before I ever knew his name. We met at my favorite coffee shop, the one I'd been going to for years. I was waiting on my drink when he struck up a casual conversation. He said something funny about the barista mispronouncing names, and I laughed. He laughed and told me how we didn't actually meet by chance. The way he'd get irritated when I changed my routine or didn't answer quickly. I started pulling back, canceling plans, turning off my location settings, keeping my friends in the loop. When I finally broke up with him, he didn't yell or cry. He just nodded, like he'd already prepared for this moment, like he'd already moved on to watching someone else, that he had noticed me at the coffee shop for months before ever speaking to me. And even now, when I order my usual drink, I sometimes wonder if someone behind me already knows what it is. That he sat behind me often, listened to my conversations, learned my habits. He even admitted to timing his visits so we'd bump into each other naturally. He said he found out where I worked by glancing at my badge one day and Googling the company directory. He made it sound romantic, like it was some kind of dedicated courtship, but my blood went cold. I didn't say anything in the moment. I just smiled and pretended it didn't bother me. But everything in me was screaming. He was charming, clean-cut, a little nervous in a sweet way. We talked for a few minutes, and before I left, he asked if he could take me out sometime. It felt spontaneous, organic, like one of those meet-cutes from a movie, so I said yes. We started dating soon after, and in the beginning, everything felt easy. He remembered the small details I mentioned in passing, like how I preferred half and half instead of milk, or how I always wore my headphones on the subway but never turned the volume too high. He said I was easy to read, which I took as a compliment at the time. A few months into the relationship, things started to feel off. Not overtly creepy, just strange. He always seemed to know where I'd be. Once he showed up outside a yoga class one never told him about. Another time he surprised me with my exact lunch order from a place I only went to once or twice, always during solo breaks. I chalked it up to good memory or coincidence. Maybe he asked my friends. Maybe I mentioned something in passing and forgot, but deep down something didn't sit right. Then, one night while we were drinking at his place, he got a little too tipsy and started talking more freely. After that, I couldn't unsee the patterns, the way he always accidentally found me. To this day, I still feel eyes on me when I go back to that coffee shop. I stopped going for a while. The first red flag was when he refused to meet anywhere too far, because, according to him, distance was a government illusion. We matched on a dating app after a short, casual exchange. He seemed quirky, maybe a little intense, but harmless. His profile was filled with grainy photos of him hiking and one of him holding a book with the title cropped out. He messaged me first, asking deep questions like, "Do you think the world is the way we're told it is?" I thought he was just being philosophical. I was wrong. That's the kind of certainty that doesn't argue. It waits and watches. We agreed to meet at a local vegan cafe, his suggestion. He said he liked places with low surveillance, which I assumed meant not too crowded. When I arrived, he was already seated outside, scanning the sky like he was expecting something to fall out of it. We talked for a bit, and at first it was fine. He was well-spoken and made great eye contact, almost too much, like he was trying to memorize my facial structure. Then the conversation took a hard left. He asked if I traveled much. I said I'd just gotten back from a trip to Colorado, and he raised his eyebrows and leaned in. He repeated it like a mantra. I thought he was trolling me, but his face was dead serious. He said the idea of people walking upside down in Australia was government brainwashing, and claimed maps were faked to control global trade. He pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots from a YouTube video he said would open my mind if I had the courage to see it. I told him I had to use the bathroom and left. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't pay for my drink. I just walked out and blocked him before I even got to my car. You know planes are fake, right? He said flatly. I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. He went on to explain that most air travel was staged using motion pods, that commercial flights were either pre-recorded simulations or were actually just looping in a circle above flat terrain. I didn't even know how to respond. Then came the kicker, he said, with complete sincerity. The earth is flat. Water doesn't bend. Think about it. The scariest part wasn't that he believed all of it. It was that he seemed completely convinced. I eventually would too.